This is Brent of the Brookbush Institute bringing you tibialis posterior activation, a muscle that has a propensity to get long and underactive in those individuals who have feet flatten or feet turn out on that overhead squat assessment, or those who can't maintain their medial longitudinal arch in standing, single leg balance, or potentially during gait. I'm going to have my friend Melissa come out. She's going to help me demonstrate. Now, I think the hardest part, or the part of this exercise where people get a little confused, is which direction should my resistance actually pull. Right? So we got to remember that the tibialis posterior does both plantar flexion and inversion. So we need something that resists this way for plantar flexion, and then inversion is kind of this inward motion so that she shows the sole of her foot inward. So I need something that pulls out that way a little bit. So my force should probably go at a little bit of an angle over yonder, which is actually pretty easy to create. If I bring her foot in this way, I hook a band around that back leg of the plinth. I can then just take this band, loop it through the handle, and throw it up over her foot, and now I have that nice angle out away from plantar flexion and inversion. To prevent her from using her adductors to maintain her leg in this position, because the band kind of wants to just take her and pull her out that way. To keep her in this position, I'm going to have her take this leg, cross it over. All right, so she's using this leg to brace this leg. She doesn't have to come up that as high. If she didn't have quite as much flexibility, we could try something like that. All right, now we're all set up for just band-resisted tibialis posterior activation. The next thing we have to figure out is who are our overactive synergists for the tibialis posterior. So any muscle that has a propensity to become long and underactive, any prime mover, and the tibialis posterior being a very important inverter, who's taking over for this inhibition? Well, chances are it's going to be the flexor hallucis longus, the flexor digitorum longus, and our fibularis or peroneal muscles. The way we get our peroneal muscles out is simply through inversion, right? Our peroneals are everters, so we don't have to do anything special there other than create this line of pull, which we've already set up. The flexor hallucis longus and the flexor digitorum longus, well, if they flex the toes, I can reciprocally inhibit them using extension of the toes. So now what I'm going to have her do is she's going to go point her foot going down and in a little bit, right, while bringing her toes up. And let's try that again. So you're going to go down and in while bringing your toes up. Good, and you can even give a little cue. A cue that works really well is if you put a little pressure on the ball behind her big toe and go here, press right through here. She'll do a lot of those things, the toes up and the inversion and plantar flexion, naturally. So I'm just going to give her that little tactile cue. There we go. And now I want you to go back nice and slow for me. Can you do that 4-second eccentric? So I'm going to have her out for 2, hold for 2, and then back, 2, 3, 4. Nice job. Now I have to admit, guys, this is a fairly low level, fairly low intensity posterior tib activation exercise. Generally, I don't need to use this exercise. I can progress somebody to our standing progressions for posterior tibialis activation, but this is an important one to have in your arsenal, because I guarantee the longer you practice, the longer you train, eventually you're going to find somebody who can't maintain the medial longitudinal arch of their foot in standing, even if you put them there first. Or maybe they've had really painful plantar fasciitis, and this is the only posterior tib activation exercise that doesn't cause them further pain. It's also one of the few exercises that's really easy to set up at home. So all they need is one of these resistive bands, which is fairly cheap. And this doesn't have to be done on a plinth. Obviously, they could tie this to their bed or a heavy dining room table or something to create this level of resistance. So once again, guys, quick reviews on setup. All right. Remember, we need to create a resistance that pulls back and that way a little bit. Right? So I put it on the back leg of the plinth. I then took the band and just looped a little section of the band through the handle. That's important, guys. You want to create a slip knot. Don't do this thing where you just slip the handle over the foot unless you want this to fly off and hit somebody. All right, so make sure you create that little slip knot. All right, now to prevent her from using her adductors, which are muscles that also have a propensity to become a little overactive, we don't want to exacerbate dysfunction, I'm going to have her use this leg and create a brace. All right, you nice and comfortable? Then remember, you can have her push through the ball of her big toe to stimulate flexion and inversion, and we're going to make sure to reciprocally inhibit her flexor hallucis longus and her flexor digitorum longus by doing big toe extension. Our common tempo markings for activation exercise is a 4-2-2 count. Since we're starting with the concentric, we're going to go down for 2, hold for 2, and then back for 4. Thank you, Melissa. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I look forward to seeing or hearing about the results and the outcomes and all of the changes you guys get in human movement.